beneath black pines. The forest had no business existing. That was what Corporal Matthias thought as he stared into the black pines stretching beyond the trench line. Nothing grew anymore in the lands between the Crusader states and the territories of the damned. Not truly. The earth had been salted by artillery, poisoned by blood, and fed for decades on corpses both holy and unholy. Trees did not survive here. Yet the forest stood. Miles and miles of towering pines bent inward like cathedral pillars, their bark blackened and wet as rotten flesh. No wind touched their branches. No birds nested within them. Even the mud between the roots looked wrong. Dark gray and pulsing softly, as if something beneath the earth breathed in slow, a sleeping rhythm. The men call it the Weeping Forest. The priests forbade entry. That alone ensured scouts were eventually sent inside. The squad moved in a single file line through the trees, boots sinking into damp needles and corpse-soft mud. 7 soldiers. Corporal Matthias led them with a rifle in hand and bayonet fixed. A hard-faced veteran with frostbitten ears and old burn scars crossing his throat. He had survived 3 trench collapses, 2 gas exposures, and the siege of Grief's Hollow. Survival had carved caution into his bones. Behind him walked Brother Edric, the squad's attached cleric, clutching an iron crucifix wrapped in barbed wire. His lips moved constantly in whispered prayer. Then came Private Lennox, youngest in the squad. He was barely 18. Private Harrow, the squad's heavy gunner. Private McKell, quiet and broad-shouldered. Private Saint. They called him that because he had once carried wounded children from a burning village. And finally, Sergeant Corvin. Corvin marched silently at the rear with his hood pulled low. His breathing sounded wet beneath his mask. Matthias glanced back at him occasionally. Something about Corvin had changed over the past month. The others have noticed it too. He slept little, spoke less, and sometimes they got him staring into empty darkness as if listening to voices nobody else heard. But war hollowed men differently. No one questioned it aloud. Then the crying began. It was soft, distant. A woman sobbing somewhere deep between the trees. Lennox froze immediately. "You hear that?" Everyone did. The sound drifted between trunks like smoke. A broken, grieving cry. "It's probably bait," Harrow muttered. Brother Edric tightened his grip on the crucifix. No civilian could survive this close to no man's land. Then the crying became clearer. It wasn't screaming. and it didn't sound panicked. It just sounded hopeless, like someone mourning beside a grave. Matthias felt something cold slide beneath his ribs. "Hey, keep moving," he ordered quietly. The deeper they traveled, the stranger the forest became. They found animal carcasses hanging from branches by rusted hooks. Deer split open from throat to pelvis. Wolves, skin completely bare, yet somehow twitching weakly when approached. Every corpse had symbols carved into the flesh, circular markings made from hundreds of tiny cuts. Brother Edric paled when he saw them. "Do not touch those," he whispered immediately. "What are they?" Lennox asked. The priest hesitated. "They're invitation marks." No one asked further. Further ahead, they discovered a trench dug impossibly deep between the trees. Ancient wooden supports lined its sides. Candles burned at the bottom despite the rain. Matthias stared downward. He could hear movement below. It didn't sound like marching. It sounded like something was crawling, like thousands of tiny scraping noises. Then, a pale hand emerged from the darkness beneath the trench wall. It wasn't attached to a body, just a severed human hand dragging itself upward on spider-like fingers. Lennox recoiled in horror. Brother Edric raised his crucifix and shouted scripture. The hand burst apart instantly, spraying black blood across the mud. The crying woman continued somewhere ahead. It was closer now, just always beyond sight. Night arrived unnaturally fast. One moment, the forest sat beneath gray skies. The next, darkness drowned everything. The squad lit hooded lamps. Their yellow glow barely touched the trees around them. That was when Miguel vanished. No scream and no gunfire. 1 second he walked beside Saint. The next, he was just simply gone. The squad spun immediately. "Miguel!" Arrow hissed. No answer. Then came chewing sounds. They were heavy, wet sounds. Directly above them, everyone raised their lamps. Something enormous crouched among the branches. Too many limbs. Its body looked human, only in the same way a corpse resembles a sleeping man. Flesh hung in strips from a swollen ribcage. Antlers burst from his skull in twisting directions. Multiple human faces were embedded across its torso, all silently mouthing prayers. And Miguel's upper body protruded halfway from the creature's stomach. He was still alive and very much conscious. His eyes moved frantically, like a cornered animal. "Please!" The monster bit downward. Miguel disappeared with the crunch of bone. Harrow opened fire instantly. The machine gun roared through the forest. Rounds tore chunks from the creature, but black meat regenerated almost instantly. The thing shrieked, not with an animal sound, with the combined screams of dozens of human voices. Then it leapt. The branches exploded apart overhead. Matthias screamed for movement. He needed to get his men on the road. The squad scattered through the trees as the creature crashed behind them. Lennox slipped in the mud. The monster landed directly atop him. For one terrible second, Matthias saw the creature clearly beneath the lantern light. Its fingers ended in human teeth. Its eyes were sewn shut with wire. And beneath the antlers sat the face of a crying woman stretched across its skull like stolen skin. Lennox shrieked as the creature drove its teeth fingers into his soft stomach. The boy screamed for his mother. Then the creature tore him apart. Brother Edric shouted prayers so loudly, blood streamed from his nose. The crucifix in his hand glowed. The monster recoiled. Matthias and Harrow dragged Lennox's body free while Saint fired flares into the trees. The creature retreated into darkness, but the crying continued, always closer. They made camp inside the ruins of an old chapel swallowed by roots and moss. There was only 5 of them now. Matthias, Harrow, Saint, Brother Edric, and Sergeant Corvin. The crying echoed outside continuously. No one slept. Brother Edric studied the carvings covering the chapel walls. Then his face went pale. These symbols, he whispered. Matthias looked up. What is it, brother? They are summoning rites. A long silence followed. Then the priest turned slowly towards Sergeant Corvin. You led us here, didn't you? Corvin remained seated near the doorway, silent, always silent. Rain dripped from his hood. Matthias frowned. Corvin, what is Brother Edric talking about? Brother Edric backed away slowly. The trail, the crying, the markers. His voice shook. This was prepared in advance. Corvin finally lifted his head. His eyes were dark. The pupils were gone entirely. Only pale covered his skin. Oh, come on, brother. I was just so tired, Corvin said softly. His voice no longer sounded fully human. I'm tired of burying brothers, tired of feeding the trenches, tired of watching God remain silent while monsters devoured us. Harrow raised his rifle instantly. What the hell did you do? Corvin smiled weakly. I listened when something finally answered. The chapel trembled. Outside, the crying became deafening. There was dozens of voices now, maybe even hundreds. Matthias realized with horror that the sound came from every direction. They were surrounded. There wasn't just one woman. It sounded like there was a forest full of them. Corvin stood slowly. They promised peace, guys. Peace, he whispered. Then his skin split open. Blackened arms burst from inside his torso like newborn spiders clawing free from a cocoon. His jaw unhinged completely. Strings of blood hung from his mouth as antlers forced through his skull. Saint fired first. The shotgun blast tore Corvin's shoulder apart. The thing inside of him screamed, and the forest answered. Shapes emerged between the trees. Tall women draped in funeral veils made from human skin. Their limbs bent backward like broken deer legs. Their faces hung open vertically from forehead to throat, revealing rows of infant teeth writhing inside. Dozens of them surrounded the chapel. They were all crying, all mourning, and they were all hungry. Brother Edric fell to his knees in prayer. The creatures rushed forward simultaneously. The chapel became slaughter. Harrow's machine gun ripped bodies apart, but the monsters crawled even after losing limbs. One leapt onto Saint and forced its needle-like fingers through his eye socket. He died, screaming while firing wildly into the ceiling. Saint fought with the trench shovel after his rifle jammed. Matthias watched him bury the blade into one creature's skull repeatedly before another tore open his throat from behind. Matthias was watching his men fall, one by one. Brother Edric held the doorway alone. His crucifix burned bright enough to hurt the eyes. The creatures recoiled from him, but it was only temporary. Then Corvin reached the priest. The newly transformed sergeant wrapped 6 elongated arms around Brother Edric and whispered something into his ear. The priest stopped praying immediately. His expression became empty. Then he turned towards Matthias with tears in his eyes and stepped willingly into the darkness outside. He was shredded apart by a swarm of bodies. The crying intensified. Matthias, with his squad gone, he ran. He stumbled blindly through the forest while screams echoed behind him. Branches clawed his face. Mud sucked at his boots. The crying woman's voice followed him everywhere now. Inside his ears, inside his skull. He could hear them whispering, "You left them, and yet you survived again. All your men are dead. You always survive alone, Matthias." At some point, dawn should have come. It never did. The forest had no end. Hours passed, maybe days. Matthias no longer knew. Then he saw her, standing between the trees. A woman in a white burial dress. Her back faced him. Long black hair hung motionless despite the windless forest. Soft crying escaped her throat. Matthias raised his rifle with trembling hands. "Turn around," he said. The woman slowly stopped crying. Then her head rotated fully backwards without the body moving. Her face was Lennox's face, or what remained of it. The skin was stretched wrong. The eyes were hollowed black. The mouth stitched into a smile. Behind her, hundreds of pale shapes emerged silently from the trees. Matthias finally understood. The crying, all the crying in the forest, it was never bait. It was worship. The forest mourned every soul it consumed, and now it mourned him too. The rifle shook violently in his hands. There was only one bullet that remained. The creature began crawling closer. Matthias decided what he was going to do. He placed the barrel of his rifle beneath his chin. But before he could follow through, something gently took the rifle from his hands. It was Sergeant Corvin. He stood beside Matthias once more. He no longer looked like a monster. No longer bleeding, he just looked tired. "Brother, you don't have to suffer anymore," he whispered. The crying stopped entirely. The forest waited. It waited for a response. And Matthias finally heard it. Not the screaming, not the monsters, but thousands upon thousands of voices beneath the earth, praying together in perfect unison. They were waiting for him to join them.